Todd, welcome. How are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm well, Meg. How are you?
I think a lot of what we're going to talk about today is really finding your peace and redefining your success, which is a topic I'm hugely passionate about. But in order to paint the picture, what does success mean to you now then, as of 2025 going into 2026?
So, success for me is being the best human that I can be. Um, you know, that's no longer just in the business world. It's, how I'm showing up for others, how I show up for myself, the things that I do to take care of myself on a daily basis. I will say that I've historically been very selfish. It's been asked many times if I ever wanted kids, and I literally my answer was, "No, I'm too selfish. I love to do all the things
Same.
on my own." um, but I'm trying to change that narrative in terms of, yeah, maybe that is one of the reasons why, but also are there ways that I can help others now, reach out to others, think of others, and in doing so, impart more wisdom that I'm learning about, yeah, just how to be a better person, and helping others on that path as well.
I think this term being selfish, particularly in your 20s, I would say, like, 'cause when you're starting your career and, that is what consumes your whole world. You have friendships, maybe you'll fall in love, but during your 20s, it's usually establishing yourself. Where do you want to go? I would have said that I was very selfish. I would still say there's parts of me that are somewhat selfish, but I don't look at it in a sense of, because I think that word selfish is quite a cruel word sometimes, or how it's been thrown around. I think for me, it was selfish in the sense of, I put all the hard work in. This is the goals I set. These are the things I want to achieve by a certain age. This is what I want for my life. So why would I be thinking about anyone else? It's like tunnel vision, isn't it? And I've spoken to so many C-suites folks at this point, and a lot of what they say now is that they're paying it forward, they are giving back, and the way they feel fulfilled is by helping others, particularly the younger generation as they find their feet, which is why a lot of them would speak to me and give me a lot of time a day. And it surprised me at first because I originally thought when you're climbing a ladder to success, this is all about you, isn't it? And that's when I started to learn about leadership and how actually the minute you become a leader, in order to be a great leader, is to learn that once you have that title, it is no longer about you. You're actually the last person. It's about every single other person in that room. As of late, again, self reflection moment going through what I'm going through. I want to use this podcast, for example, as a passion project rather than tying it to my work or anything else. Because when I look back through my career, the moments where I was probably the happiest is when I worked with children that were going through mental health issues and things like that. And just they were so innocent and needed some tender, loving care. Every single day I'd come home from that job, and it was an alternative provision. So there were some days where things were a bit crazy and people would say, I don't know how on earth you do that. And I would say, this is the only role I've ever truly felt fulfilled. My cup is totally full. I can go home and relax in peace and feel like I've made a difference today. And I do think that a lot of us really do strive for that. I think a lot of us maybe think originally we're selfish. We're on this path to, this is where I want to go. It's all about me, me, me. That's what I'm working towards, right? But how long can you sustain that feeling of just being all about you? Like you say, you use the term selfish. How long does that truly last? It doesn't.
Yeah, and it's interesting. You make me think, however, while it seems selfish on the surface, it's actually my path at least was creating a alternative reality that I thought my parents wanted me to have. And so while I call it selfish and the drive for success was there, it was ultimately at the time uh, there was this underlying subconsciousness of I need to do this to make my parents proud of me and for them to love me. Of course, the love was always there unconditionally, but like because I had my success and the amount of money that I made tied to my self worth, I then would run to my dad specifically and be like, Dad, I just got this raise or I got this bonus or this promotion. And I was waiting for that hit of like love pouring back at me for the achievement that I made when I, I know that he loved me for everything besides all of that. But it was, switching the selfishness more towards needing approval and love. And I thought that that was what I had to do to receive it from my father. Um, and, then ultimately realizing that I'm my own person. I need to do this for me, which I guess brings back into selfishness, but I need to do this for me and not for other people. And, ultimately that's, I think where my path, when I first left corporate America, literally the first my mom was freaking out and she's like, "What is Todd doing? He's throwing away his career. Like he went to university and now he's just like giving up and what is he doing starting some business on his own?" And my dad was like, "I'm not worried. He's always been a success in corporate and I'm sure he's going to do just as good on his own." So, it was then that support as it were from the person that I thought I always needed to achieve for at the end of the day, he knew I had it. Like he had no worries at all.
Mm. I wonder, is it selfishness or is it self-awareness? Because when you talk about being selfish in a sense of, I don't want children, I'm too selfish, I don't think that's a bad thing. Like I've definitely said the same in my life. I don't have enough time or energy to give to another entity. So why would I bring that into this world? And I've always said I would want to be really well off and established in a sense of my finances before I bring someone else into this world. I wouldn't want to bring someone to this if it was going to be hard for them, or if I hadn't found who I was, or I was still trying to discover myself. And I know we all go through seasons and things, but why would I, to me, bring a child into this world if, I'm not 100% ticking over great? Am I going to start subconsciously rubbing off traits about myself that I'm still trying to fix or make better, or et cetera, et cetera? And I don't think that's selfish at all. I think that's a really, truly remarkable thing to be aware of, that there's so many people out there that do really want children and they just bring them in, and others that don't really think. Um, and I think the way the world is going, getting super philosophical, that having people that recognize that maybe that I'm not going to take the traditional path and here's why, and that's totally valid, is a good thing, no?
I think it is. I mean, first of all, major props to parents because
Oh,
as you
yeah.
said, you've you've got so many things that you're considering and
So many
the
things.
path that you're taking and working on, et cetera. And I'm the same. And I mean, I'm turning 47 on Friday, 2 days from now. And like, I think to myself, how in the world would I have kids? Like, I, I am constantly analyzing every day the, things I want to do, I need to work on, I need to improve. And I'm like, if I had children in the mix, I have no idea how I would be. I mean, they do say that when you have kids, you do find a way to make a plan and it all works out. But I'm just so in awe of parents, because I just think of the mental anguish I sometimes put myself through. And, if I had children that I was raising at the same time, I really don't know how they do it, but I admire parents through and through.
I'd feel sorry for my children. You should see the way I am with my chihuahua. Like just when she gets on and off the sofa, I'm freaking out. I'd be like, I don't know how popular Friends was for you, but the moment when Rachel has the baby on the swing and she's like scared of her hair, I would just be frantic. Whereas my partner would be the complete opposite. And then I'd come across as the strict parent. I know I would. But I like being in control. Like bringing up someone else, or having other people around you. It's the same with the way I work. I think that my way is a great way. So why wouldn't we do it this way? Like every single part of my life has been very like regimented to how I want it to look in order to A plus B equals C, and that's the plan, Um,
Have you found ways to let go of that control?
it's a really hard thing, isn't it? The only thing that really seems to help me at the moment, and I love quotes, I love reading, and I love this idea of growth happens in a discomfort. So in order to keep growing and to keep achieving new things and, not to become stagnant is to get comfortable being uncomfortable, get out of your own way, let go of control, knowing that that's how successful people kind of see the way of the world, how they become okay with failure and learning experiences, etc. I think that gives me some peace. But I think traditionally I've been very much control the controllables, and the outcome then, exactly what's going to happen next. And that's brought me a lot more comfort. But I think it's held me back in certain areas for sure.
Mm. No, I think jumping into the uncomfortable and the unknown. So, for instance, I left the US 10 years ago, and became a digital nomad for 5 years. And, that was a different country every month. And the amount of, not chaos, it was controlled chaos, but like constantly changing locations and, needing to seek, where am I getting my food tonight? Where's the grocery store? Where's the laundromat? Um, you know, putting all of these physical, uh, yeah, barriers that ultimately made me very uncomfortable. But there was so much growth that was happening within that as well.
Me and my partner have just started talking about trips for next year. Um, and it's my 30th next year. So I want to do something memorable. And we spoke about he's got a converted van. So we were talking about going over to France from the UK and then taking the van across Europe and doing like a Europe trip. And like it was really spontaneous thought that literally came up yesterday morning. And we were talking about it on the dog walk this morning, and he'd said, we'll have somewhat of a plan. We'll have insurance, so if we break down in the middle of nowhere, we can just call someone and wait a couple hours. And all of these like fears of the unknown started coming into my head, and I could feel my anxieties being like, no, no, what sounded like a really lovely, peaceful 2 weeks is now starting to feel chaotic and scary because I can't control the controllables of it. Do you just when you left the US, not knowing what exactly was going to happen next for you, how did you find your peace with that? Was it exciting? Was it scary? Like, it's a huge change in your
It was a
life.
huge change, and I mean, it started with selling our house in Chicago and putting everything that we owned into storage, and then traveling for a few months, and then we'd come back to Chicago, visit some friends. We'd look at the storage, and like we'd empty half of it out, um, and this process over the next year ended up being to where we only owned a suitcase and a carry-on and our dog. We brought our dog along, the whole time as well. I mean, she went to Thailand and Switzerland and all over Europe, and, but ultimately, yeah, it was somehow it just all kept rolling. It's like whatever life presents to you, you go with it instead of like feeling like it has to be controlled. I mean, literally, we would, because we were so freewheeling at the time, we would, just see an article in a magazine and see a destination and be like, "That sounds like fun. When should we go?" Because, we didn't have anything that was tying us back, and it was just allow us to discover, on a whim, things that interested us in terms of, destination and location. But there were elements of control in that, we made sure that we had a kitchen and that we were close to grocery stores. And there's like the creature comforts that you need in order to at least feel comfortable in your day-to-day life. And those were the things that we tried to control because we were still both working full-time jobs. So, even with all of this movement, we still needed to buckle down and make money. Um, so we needed to create some type of an environment that allowed still the day-to-day, responsibilities to remain.
Tell me about your career and how you found happiness with peace rather than really focusing like you did for the majority of your career on success and titles and promotions.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think my career throughout up until my mid to late 30s, so I was always seeking the next role, growing in whatever company that I was with. I worked for Cinemark movie theaters for about 8 years. Then I moved to Hyatt hotels for about 8 years. From there, I went to Expedia for a number of years. And it was always leveraging whatever experience I had in the past and then taking a growth role within those organizations. Um, but it was, I'm going to say that I was stuck in the expectations of corporate America and, the fact that I went to university in order to get this job, and then I got that job, and that job allowed me to get this one and this one and this one. But it really was once I was up against to get a promotion that I was promised at one of the companies, and then realizing that, corporate politics and otherwise, or even budgetary, you've got your quarterly annual budgets, and that line item for me to go to the next level was just not approved within the budget. And it was approved by someone that didn't even know who I was. So realizing that my entire my my life, not my life hung on a string, but my where I was going and my success was tied to corporate decisions that didn't even know who I was as a person, then I was like, I'm done. Like, I want, I don't want people who don't even know me. I don't want them valuing me as a line item on a spreadsheet. Like, I'm so much more worthy of things than that. And so that's where I went out on my own, and I started a consulting firm, started doing the same roles that I was doing in corporate America, but doing it as a consultant. And my joke was, hopefully none of my clients are listening to this, but it is what it is. I ended up, working half the time and making triple the money because like I could then work efficiently. I was, still delivering above and beyond the results that my clients were expecting. Um, but it was all based on me truly wanting to do a good job for them and being very closely tied to those clients and, their successes, that then I found worth within that and I was valued by them. Um, and it was a much more personal relationship than, just working for a blind corporation that didn't see me as a person.
When you talk about your value, how you see yourself, your self-worth, how how did you learn that?
How?
How what did you do in order to think of yourself that way? And I wonder if at this point any of it ties into we didn't speak about it a lot, but getting deeper into your addiction, because I'm sure going through a headspace at that time, self-worth probably wasn't very high on your list of things, feelings, emotions. So how do you take it from one end of the spectrum to the other?
Sure. Yeah. So it's interesting. And yeah, I won't go into deep detail, but I did have had some addictive tendencies around alcohol and substances. And that was over the course of a few years, nothing too hectic, but at the same time, when you're in active addiction, you don't realize that you're actually in it. And you don't realize that you have no self worth because you're actually turning to your addictions to make yourself feel better. It's only when you're on the other side and those addictions have been released from you, that you then realize how worthy you are of self-love ultimately. Um, because the addictive tendencies and behaviors are simply a mask for something you don't like about yourself, or a situation that you're in, or a relationship that's not serving you, or a job that you're not happy in. And you're doing anything you can to make yourself feel better in the sense that you don't actually want to feel anything. You don't want to feel emotions. You want to just escape from the world. And so, that's what people do with drugs, alcohol, sex, gambling, shopping, uh, Instagram, anything that's going to give you dopamine. It's if you can start to remove those false things that are creating dopamine that is not sustainable. Um, my self love and enjoyment of life is actually coming now from peace and realizing that I can wake up in the day and just look at the trees and be like, wow, they're so beautiful. Or one of my favorite things to do is like sitting in the or standing in the shopping line at a grocery store and knowing that I don't need to pull out my phone to occupy the time. I just stand there and look at people and observe what's happening around me. It's meditation in the everyday life. that's really starting to creep more and more in. And I've I had a fairly severe rock bottom about 16 months ago. But from that point, my life has absolutely changed. I'm literally a brand new person. And it's this discovery of what life truly can be, with all of those, yeah, addictive behaviors behind me, that I'm loving the ride. And I love myself, and I don't mind saying this, I love myself so much now that, like, I know it's impossible to go back there because of the growth that I'm seeing, the people that I'm surrounding myself, the change that I'm seeing in others based on the change that I've made in myself, the inspiration that I'm giving to others. Um, yeah, it's like if I were here back then and I yeah got up to this level and now I'm up here, there's no way to go back there. I might slide back a little and that's fine, but like yeah the growth that I have, I think one thing that I have shared is, when you're growing in life, you can move backwards slightly and you can also be hit up against sandpaper. You're trying to ascend and, be a better person. And things come into your life and they scratch a little, but you're still moving forward. And that's why the sandpaper is scratching you, because you're continuing forward and there's something trying to pull you down, but you don't let it. You still are inching uh, further forward. So I don't remember the original question, but yeah, that's kind of where I'm headed.
What I find super fascinating about your story and, slightly touching on addiction or using substances, but for myself, different, but having antidepressants or medication. And I remember at the beginning of this year having a period where I tried to come off them. And I was feeling a bit numb from it all. And when I looked at it, actually, the numbness was probably a lot of overwhelming tendencies that I wasn't addressing. And so I just kind of was like, let's have a blank slate. Bearing in mind, I was 28 at the time and I started them at 16. So it'd been 12 years. It'd been a long time. Um, so I really, coming off them, had hope in a sense of maybe a restart, but I didn't know if there would be anything in this life that could make me feel the way medication did, because it is scientifically proven to be rewiring neurons in my brain and doing something. Like there's science evidence to it. We know with addiction and substances that abusing them, they're doing some sort of chemical change up in our brains. They're physically changing something. So when hearing from you, someone that has had substances like myself to help get through the days, but now you can stand in the queue in a shop and just listen and find peace or meditate or enjoy the trees or nature or the sun. If you had told me a year ago that waking up at 6 a.m. and going for a walk and seeing the sunrise would feel as therapeutic as medication, I would have laughed.
Mm.
I wouldn't have believed it. How is it in the doing for you that you realize that there were other things that could help heal you other than turning to things that you shouldn't? Because in those moments when someone tells you to get better, you should try this and this and this, or why don't you meditate? In those moments, it's like bull crap. Do you know what I mean? Like, no, you don't believe it.
You really don't believe it. It's so difficult when you're in it, when you're, in the mud, in the trenches, to think that anything anyone else is telling you is actually going to work.
Hmm.
But you just have to take it one day at a time. And, as you start to experience things, and I mean, I remember I did go to a outpatient rehab here in Cape Town about 4 years ago, and one of the exercises that my therapist told me to do is he's like, Todd, when was the last time you watched a movie? And I couldn't remember. I'd either been too stressed with work or travel or all different reasons. And he's like, go home and just, I think it's also because I always had to be doing. I always felt like I had to be, if I wasn't worth anything if I wasn't productive. And so he's like, go home and watch a movie tonight and just be. And let the movie wash over you. Just enjoy it. And I remember it was Gladiator, and I sat down and I started watching it, and within 5 minutes, I was crying my eyes out because I was doing something for myself. I was pausing. I was bringing back things that used to bring me joy. Things that, I worked for a movie theater company for 8 years, so I used to love movies. But it's when you realize that you let life take over and uh, remove the joys of life, that when you start to see these little shimmers come in more and more. I mean, I will literally burst out in tears on a whim nowadays, and I love it. And I'm not afraid of it, but it's so beautiful to know that I can feel again. Happy, I'll cry happy tears, sad tears. And to answer your question, it's just you have to start experiencing these moments in life to realize that you are on the right path. Um, and the more you accumulate of being on that right path, the more you look back and realize your growth. And then, yeah, you become ultimately an inspiration to others and share your story. Um, but I've also found that sharing the deep stories no longer serves me as much. I mentioned the rock bottom that I hit 16 months ago, and I used to tell that story, like the detail of the story, to everyone to like shock them into, this is where I came from. And like that story doesn't serve me anymore. I am at this moment in my life today, and I wouldn't have been here without that story, but it doesn't define who I am anymore. Uh, you know, as I stand here today, and the person that I am today is all of that accumulation of entire life experiences has brought me to this point. But the person you see today is the strong, capable, loving, person that I am. So, uh, I think it's also important that we, over time, let go of our stories because our stories can define and own us, and we should own who we are today.
100%. I believe that speaking to that person that told you to watch a movie as well, the sacred part of that is feeling like you've been given permission. Because I've
Mm,
been
mm.
that person where you're
100%.
consistently overwhelmed by guilt. I spoke literally yesterday. I spoke to a CEO. He's a good friend of mine. I call him, the most humble CEO I've ever known. And he said to me to purge, but purge your favorite Netflix series or doom scroll on TikTok and to do it and have no plans, have no goals, no pressure, no growth, no nothing in that moment, guilt free. Because every single day we're consuming so much information that our brains are overwhelmed. Then there's got to be a point where it switches off. It cannot take any more. There's only so much we can actually consume. And in those moments of self entertainment and just watching a movie and feeling nothing, for very, 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 very long time, I felt awful doing that. It made me feel better having the break. But in my mind, I was causing more stress almost because I felt guilty. How am I going to achieve anything if I'm doing things that Elon Musk probably doesn't do? Elon's super successful. Do you think he's watching films? No, he's working 24/7, surely. And it's the same, I think, going back to being a parent or something. Are you allowed to sit there in a moment and do something for you? No, now you're selfish because your child needs you, your partner needs you. There's cleaning to do, there's cooking to do. And I think no matter where you are in your life, there's always an excuse to say why you can't justify what you want to do. But truly, every single day, we're allowed a moment of complete peace of doing whatever we want to do, even if we're not learning, even if we're not growing, even if it's not moving the dial. And I think sharing things like this online and having personal conversations, like it just takes someone saying, no, you have permission. You can do that. You're more than entitled to do that. That will then hopefully have someone listen and go, okay, yeah, I'm going to watch that Netflix series tonight without guilt, rather than watching it and feeling complete and utter strain in my own mind. We are our biggest obstacles, aren't we?
We
Truly,
are, and
we
I think, balance is so important in life, but I think what happens in the business world quite often, and it's where I came from, sounds like potentially you as well, is the only way that I'm going to feel balanced is if I'm totally unbalanced by controlling, achieving, doing everything that I can to do, and grow within a business sense. That we lose the balance of the other end of the spectrum of doom scrolling, watching a movie. and not shame or guilting ourselves for that activity. Um, because that can have a boomerang effect as well. Like you might do those more downtime activities, but then the whole time in the back of your head, you're like, crap, but I got to do this and this and this. And then as soon as you're done, then you just latch right back on to, um, doing all the really hard work. But the key is to just, yeah, as you were saying, just be totally peaceful and accepting of, you having those moments to just let yourself be.
What do you do now then? What are your happiness techniques or things that bring you joy when you know that you might be feeling as though you're rubbing against the sandpaper, things are feeling like they're on top of you? How do you get yourself back up?
Yeah, my biggest things are, I mean, if it's in the moment, it's like just breathing, or like if a email or something comes across that I'm just not prepared for, I'll literally just shut my laptop and sit here for like 5 minutes. Um, uh, Also, just going for a walk, is always super helpful. But another thing that's really come up for me in the last year or two is dancing. Like I love to dance, so that's more a weekly, every other weekly occurrence. But it's just this letting go entirely and dancing like nobody's watching, because that's that's really where my joy comes from. And when you do something that you're really joyful and love, you end up being great at it. So, like, I had no idea that I'm such a good dancer, and I, not tooting my own horn, but like I have people stop me all the time because I'll go to like festivals and clubs and things. Um, you're never too old to go out, by the way. Uh, but I'll have like 20 somethings come up and be like, dude, you're such a good dancer. But yeah, it's rewarding, and it's just a way to like let out everything. And yeah, sorry, I'm going
Oh,
off on
I
that, but I
I
I just
love
love
that.
dancing.
I think that there is so much of the same advice to happiness out there and it works for so many people, so that's why a lot of people, say the same things. It's journaling, it's therapy, it's meditation, it's getting outside in nature, and I think all of those things are super valuable. But when someone comes in with something slightly different, like I did hear it years and years ago about almost like Bridget Jones style dancing, where you just flick the music on and you dance around in your kitchen, like you say, like no one's watching, and how therapeutic that can be. Or the same with singing, whether you're good or bad at it, like just sing. Lock yourself in your home one night and sing. And I think those types of happiness techniques that people may have tried the journaling, they may have tried therapy, they may have tried coaching, and something just isn't resonating. And then it takes hearing a podcast and someone going, I love to dance. And someone thinking, okay, let's give it a go. And that could just be like the wake up call they needed. I'm obsessed with that. I love it.
Well, and going back to the put yourself in uncomfortable situations, like so I moved to Cape Town about 5 years ago, and then yeah, went through the kind of rehab experience, ended up getting a divorce from my partner of over 15 years, and here I was in my early 40s. Like, who am I? Like, I had been in a relationship since I was 19, um, and two different ones, but it was just like, who am I? Like, and so in Cape Town, I just started putting myself in uncomfortable situations. Yeah, I would go dancing. I would do pottery classes. I I modeled nude for like a pencil drawing class.
I love it.
I mean, I had like 20 people in front of me and I'm the model.
That's
And
crazy.
it was
I
so
love it.
uncomfortable, but it's like putting yourself
What
in
was
these
that feeling
situations.
after? Do you remember walking out there? What were you like thinking and feeling? Because it's the dopamine hit, isn't it? It's the build up, it's the rush, it's the you get the dopamine hit from the actual anticipating yourself to getting to that moment. So you would have had all these emotions going, oh my gosh, can I do this? You're about to do it, and then the minute it's done, you can walk out and relax. Like, where you're like, gosh, who am I? Like, does it really opens up surely another part of you that you had never discovered before?
It does, and that's been such a gift of sobriety, because when you realize that you can put yourself in super uncomfortable situations and you don't have to drink or take anything to get through that situation, then you realize just how strong you are and how centered you are as a person. The fact like I don't drink alcohol anymore, and the amount of social situations that I'm in where everyone else around me is drinking and I'm totally chilled. Or if I'm not enjoying it, then I know I'm gonna leave because I'm not having fun. But like I'm not pushing myself through the uncomfortability by drinking in order to get through the situation that I actually don't even want to be in. So yeah, that's been a real gift to be in uncomfortable situations, and then you learn so much about yourself because you have to sit through it. You have to be like, "Ugh, I really don't feel great right now," but it's then just pushing through and realizing that you actually are fully capable of doing things, and getting through uncomfortable situations, and then that just kind of flows into the rest of life, even in situations where it wouldn't be appropriate to drink. It's uncomfortable, but you get through it. Um, so yeah, it's been a real
Mm.
gift.
From your experiences, then, how do you think people can avoid feelings of cynicism or pessimism within themselves? Your God.
Listening, yeah.
Literally asked you the biggest question, like, you know all the answer. Your God.
I think it's just being true to yourself and owning what it is that your needs are. And also listening to yourself of what your needs are and not being afraid to tell others what that is. Because when you hold those back, then you start resenting others. You think it's really you thought, hey, whatever your needs are, the other person should have telepathically known what your needs are. Um, but instead, just being okay with speaking up and saying, I'm uncomfortable here. I think I'm gonna go. Um, you know, I I'm sorry, I'm not gonna come to that party tonight because I'm not in a good space right now, and I'm afraid of how I might react in that space. Thank you for inviting me, but I'm going to decline. Like, not making up stories, but being honest, truthful, transparent, and vulnerable with people of what's really going on for you. I think we as a society or different cultures that you might have grown up in, you always have to put on a happy face and you have to, it's expected that you outwardly put out what you believe the public wants you to see. You have to put masks on. I mean, this is a huge challenge for people with mental illness and mental health issues is that what we don't realize is that when they are out in public, it's all they can do to get through a social interaction or something because they don't wanna be wherever it is that they are, and they can't wait to get home and just, like, shed all the masks that they have. I'm fortunate enough to have some people in my life very close to me that are, faced with these challenges, and only recently have I been able to learn that side of humanity, and it's been such a wonderful gift for me to, as a neurotypical person, to see the challenges that neurodiverse people have to go through.
So I think the best thing anyone could ever be told is that no one truly cares as much about the situation as you do. I think we build so much up in our own minds about turning someone down or walking away from a situation, or, like we said, feeling like we can just sit in front of the TV and do nothing. The only person that seems to really truly penalize the situation is yourself. Like
No,
no one else really cares that much. Like, people will miss you at the party. I'm not saying that, but it will be yesterday's news. Do you know what I mean? The only one that's sitting and dwelling on it after yesterday is you. No one else. No one else that really matters.
well, and that's true, and when you realize you can put yourself first, then you actually, again, coming back to the selfishness, but it's not selfish. You're putting yourself first, you're putting your needs first so that you can ultimately show up for other people. Um, and when you're in a situation and you realize you're not putting yourself first and you're uncomfortable, you need to remove yourself from it or not commit to it in the beginning. Um, that ultimately serves everyone much better.
Can you share a little bit now about how you separate your accomplishments from your fulfillment? Because in the role you do, being around people that are very money focused, very focused on the traditional definition of what success looks like to most people, and you having to step out of that bubble for your own inner peace, how are you managing through that? How are you still waking up each day and saying, I'm taking a step in the right direction? It may not have been as fast as it was for me in corporate America, but I'm more than okay with that.
Yeah, I think it's ultimately realizing it's living in abundance. So, um, I've been building my business for the past year and a half, and it slowly is compounding on itself in terms of our revenue. But I hate to say it, it's not about the money. I
Mm.
mean, we're in travel, so, it's great that, we get to create incredible experiences for, our clients and their families and friends, that they take on the trips, but it's doing everything to ensure that they have the best experience and that they walk away with incredible memories. And ultimately, because of the personal journey that I've been on, we're starting to infuse ways for our clients and guests to discover more about themselves while on a trip. Just, find ways to connect with each other more. Ultimately, we have a saying, you should go back a better person after your trip instead of an exhausted person who needs another holiday. So it's it's slowly building an ecosystem that ultimately allows people to be, it's just like I'm doing, be the best versions of themselves they can be. And, we're building a company that allows them to access that through travel, and through experiences. And while, our client base is very wealthy people, you know, it's unlocking things that they haven't had in the past. So we're really seeing a trend that luxury as it used to be, the five-star hotels, the, you know, car service, the Michelin star restaurants, et cetera, that all still exists, and that's more of a baseline of what's expected nowadays in travel, for the wealthy, but they're looking for experiences that take them beyond, just the material. And it is this more connected to self, connected to those around you, connected to the culture that you're in, learning from those places, and people. And, that's where I see success. And the money comes, but that's, I've realized that's not why I've built my business. It's taken me a while to realize that, but, yeah, it's such a blessing to have been shown that now.
It's funny. I spoke to someone this morning about he's like a coach on fulfillment. And I asked him the question of how will we ever truly be fulfilled when every goal we set, the goalposts will always move. And so we're always wanting more. And he said in order to be fulfilled is to be grateful. And I think we tend to think of feeling grateful and putting two and two together and thinking, all right, I have to practice gratitude. I have to have a gratitude journal and all these things. And again, I'm not someone that stereotypically likes the traditional ways of helping someone through mental health, like I've said, journaling, therapy, etc. I think those things are super powerful, but I also don't believe in the slightest that it's a one size fits all. I think we all have to find our own ways and means to step outside of our boxes and be grateful, to be satisfied and happy and content with what we have. And when you said we want to provide experiences for people where they don't feel like they need a holiday to get over from the holiday, I was saying that to everyone after my South African trip recently because there was just so much going on. It wasn't your traditional European trip where you could sit by the pool and read a book. Like there was, every single day was filled with activities. And I come home, the first thing I said was, it was beautiful, but I feel like I need a holiday to get over the holiday. And it wasn't the place or the holiday itself. It was the fact that I'd been completely burning out all year and that time I was supposed to have off, I didn't. And the last 2 weeks, I've been more grateful than anything because it took me getting outside of my comfort zone, outside of my bubble, jumping on a plane for 12 hours and being surrounded by a completely different culture than the one I'd grown up in to see the world for what it is and to come home and land safely in my home, in my bed, and feel lucky just to be born where I've been born. I mean, I think sometimes that's how you find gratitude and fulfillment in life, is to step out of your mundane 9 to 5 routine, how your week looks for you, go and discover what it looks like for someone else, which I think is one of the most beautiful things about travel, actually. A lot of people find themselves and have a sacred moment of self-discovery when they're outside of the places they grew up and the home comforts.
No, I agree. Another thing that we're doing, we haven't really fine-tuned it yet, but it's what is that aftercare after your trip? So you're touching on it, but how can we as a company have some type of programming or communication or follow-up, um, such that it really is like an aftercare of your travels, and helping you integrate back into your everyday, because there's something that you learned there coming back home that, yes, I mean, you can now continue and discover more about that gratitude that you have, and the travel that you went on was a catalyst to start that.
Mm-hmm. I've learned to slow down. That's the biggest thing. I wish I'd learned that in South Africa, might I add. So I'm going to have to come back to redo it all again. But yeah, I wish I had learned to slow down. I think in today's day and age, where to be successful, it's really built around this idea of hustle culture and working 24/7, 7 days a week. And if you're not pouring into that cup, you might as well be pouring into the abyss, because you won't achieve what you really want. I'm starting to call bullshit on it.
Mm.
This slow living CEO, I think there's a lot more to be grateful for, to be joyful for about living that life. You hear the saying, money can't buy happiness, and you're exactly in that boat of, how do I create happiness for people? Yes, they spend money to get this, but it's not going to be by Michelin-star restaurants and designer handbags anymore. It's going to be by memories and experiences that completely change their life, and it will be something that changes their year and changes their outlook. And I'm totally down for that going into 2026. That's for sure. I have to round up towards the end of the podcast now, Todd. And something I love doing around here is asking you if you have a book, a podcast, a question, something that you can leave our audience with. Because as much as this conversation has been super inspiring and enlightening, I'd love for them to carry that feeling onwards and have a bit of an actionable goal for themselves. So is there anything that's really helped you that you could pass on?
Didn't think about this one in advance. um, I would ask yourself, are you happy? And the answer in my mind should be, you're not. Um, what you should be seeking is contentment. Because if you have contentment in life, everything flows from that. It's this endless pursuit of happiness that is unattainable. Um, and that's, I think, where we get caught up in today's, I mean, it flows into a lot of the things that we were talking about, success and, um, self-worth, self-love, etc. But if you're just content with what you have and, uh, you have that baseline, then everything flows from that.
It's funny because my partner, whenever we have moments of talking about ourselves and our relationship and where we are in life, and he'll just say, I love you. I'm just super content. And I used to think that that word meant like just getting by. Like that's how I used to perceive it. And I used to be like, what, really? Like content, that's it. But the more and more I've dove deep into that meaning for a lot of people in this life, it means so much more. And it comes back to that good old saying of happiness is fleeting, because happiness is a morning coffee and then that happiness is gone. And so I think, like you say, finding something that sticks, like contentment in life, having a moment of self-reflection and saying, am I truly happy? And being able to answer no. And this is how I'm going to fix that for myself. Like, do I care to be happy, or do I care to be content or fulfilled or satisfied? I think changing how we look at that is super, super important.
Yeah, and sorry, I'm just looking up at my bookcase. I think something that supports that is, I'm going to stand up really quickly.
I thought then, because of the construction, you were going to, like something was coming through your ceiling or something. You were looking straight up. I was like, oh my gosh, what's happened?
Yeah, so Good Vibes, Good Life,
Yes, I've
um,
seen this.
by Vex King. It's a very simple, easy read, but yeah, the subtitle, How Self-Love is the Key to Unlocking Your Greatness. Um, and yeah, it really does just, it goes with like being content and in the present moment and just accepting what what life is right now. And from that, it will, yeah, so many more things will flow.
I love it. I cannot thank you enough for your time today. It's such a joy for me when I speak to someone just from initially seeing a LinkedIn profile and actually learning so much about your journey. And I really think that having therapeutic, honest, and authentic conversations like this for someone that's just listening on the commute or in the gym or walking the dog will be able to take so much away from it because it's so real and relatable. And I couldn't do this without people like you being willing to share. So thanks so much for your time today, Todd.
No, thank you, Meg, and thank you for bringing this type of environment to the business world, as it were, because I think we've all had to live behind veils of perception and wanting people to perceive us a certain way. And when we just put out our authentic self, then so much comes from that. So, thank you.